Alrighty, welcome back everyone. It's Garland here bringing you a new Pantheon video. And today, we're going to jump into the class introduction for Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, which is currently in early access. It's been in early access for a couple weeks now, so I figured it's about time to go ahead and just put a short little class introduction out there. That way, more and more people can decide if they want to jump into Pantheon in the current state, again, in early access, in my opinion, aka Alpha, essentially. So Pantheon Rise of the Fallen does take that old school EverQuest feeling. It's basically a reskin of EverQuest in many people's eyes. It's made by Brad McQuaid, it is what it is. So short little introduction here. This is not going to be an in-depth guide to all the classes. So we do have the Cleric, obviously the King Daddy of all healing. You're going to need a Cleric in most group situations. The group role is Healer, of course. And the available races you can see are the Dark Mirror, Dwarf, Elf, and Human. If we go and look at the featured abilities, you guys can read it on your screen. Pause the video. These aren't all of the spells that he has access to. Again, this is not going to be a full in-depth guide on every class, just a short little introduction. Next we have the Dire Lord. Now the Dire Lord is basically a tank, plays the tank role, and it kind of does everything better than the Warrior, to be honest. Dire Lord, at this point in early access, it has spells as well as abilities, so take that into consideration. If you're interested in playing a tank role, give the Dire Lord a chance. Dark Mirror, Halfling, Human, Ogre, and Scar. Some of the abilities. Now the Druid is on the list next here. However, as of filming this video, the Druid is not currently in early access, but we'll still include him in this class introduction video. He does have a group role of a healer. He has buffs. He has debuffs, he has DOTs, he has DDs. It's basically an all-around healer. You could be a Archai, Elf, Halfling, Human, and Ogre for Druid. Some of the abilities. Next, of course, we have the Enchanter. So the Enchanter is obviously, you're going to be one of your main support roles, crowd control, etc., mesmerization for crowd control. Dark Mirror, Dwarf, Elf, Human, and Gnome. Then we again have some featured abilities. He also has, buffs, as well as your main, like I said, CC. Next we have the Monk. Everybody should be familiar with Monk Fu. He is a DPS, a pure DPS. Monks are obviously great for pooling. Always great having a monk in the group or raid. Archie, Dark Mirror, Human, and Scar. As it sits right now, in early access, Monk is the only class that can feign death. So, keep that in mind, Next we have my favorite, obviously, the Necromancer. He's basically a support role. The Necromancer is not listed as a DPS role. He is a support role. He will do DPS, but there are other pure DPSs that do more damage, unfortunately. So the Necromancer is obviously, the commander of the undead. You will have a summoned pet, etc. You can be a Dark Mirror, Gnome, Human, Ogre, and Scar. Some of his abilities, mainly dealing in DOT damage over time. Again, he does have his pet with him. And then he has his life drains. Typical Necromancer. Next we have the Paladin, again, playing a tank role. Paladin's a great tank. He has some self-heals. Dark Mirror, Dwarf, Elf, and Human. Next we have the Ranger. So the Ranger is a pure DPS. The Ranger uses his bow, but he does, can dual wield as well. Elf, Halfling, Human, and Scar. The Rogue is your typical Rogue. He is DPS. Darkmere, Dwarf, Elf, Halfling, Human, Gnome, and Scar. Next on the list we have the Shaman. So the Shaman is a group role healer, but he is also support. He has buffs, he has debuffs, he has damage over time, he has direct damage as well. All around kind of character. He even has a pet. So if you want a mixture of kind of almost everything, Shaman's a pretty solid class to play. Archie, Darkmere, Elf, Human, Ogre, and Scar for the races. Like I said, a lot of buffs, a lot of debuffs. Summoner is going to be your pet commander, sort of like the Necromancer, but the Summoner does more damage. It is what it is, guys. The Summoner is a pure DPS class. He does have his pet with him. Archie, Darkmere, Elf, Gnome, and Human. So we have the Warrior. Everybody should be familiar with the Warrior, obviously. He is a tank, like I said, as it sits. Dire Lord kind of outperforms the Warrior. Hopefully that changes. They can come into some kind of balance in early access. But the Warrior is a tank, pure tank. You're going to sit there and be a meat shield. Archie, Darkmere, Dwarf, Elf, Human, Ogre, and Scar. Wizard. Again, you should be familiar. Pure DPS, big boy damage. You're dropping the nukes, essentially. You're going to have high damage spells with costing a lot of mana cost. Archie, Darkmere, Elf, Human, and Gnome. And then there is going to be one more class, and that is the Bard. However, they don't have a write-up on it. The Bard isn't in early access currently, just like the Druid. Those are the only two classes currently missing as of filming this video for early access. So just a short little video, guys, on a class introduction. This was not an in-depth guide on any in particular class. If you're interested in Pantheon Rise of the Fallen and you want to try it out, you can purchase it via the Pantheon official website, and it's also on Steam. So check it out if you really like that old EverQuest MMORPG vibe, very social game, then Pantheon is definitely for you. So that is a small class introduction. You guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, as always, go ahead and leave below. And I'll see you guys real soon.